My name is Andras Szollosi-Nagi. It's a long Hungarian name. I'm a professor of hydrology and currently serve as the rector of the UNESCO-IHE Institute for Water Education, which is located in Delft, the Netherlands. We are a member of the council, the institute, and I'm serving as a governor and the board, and also as a member of the bureau. Well, UNESCO was. That goes back to 1996, when I was in UNESCO in Paris, and I was the secretary of the International Hydrological Program. And from early on, that was, I remember, 94, way back in Cairo, at the margin of the International Water Association, when the idea of having an umbrella organization was born. An organization that brings together various parties who are concerned with and about water, particularly what will happen with water in the future. And most importantly, how to close the gap between the scientific approaches or technology and politics and policy making. So that was really the fundamental driver why the Council has been established, to bridge this gap between the technical and the political. The Council is unique. First of all, it's an organization of organizations, so we do not have individual membership. B, we are not exclusive in the sense that this is a scientific organization, or this is a citizens organization, or a grassroots, or civilians, or whatever, policymakers, or bankers, or financiers, but tries to bring everybody together to provide a forum of discussion with a view to really change water policy, and above all, the politics, globally, regionally, and hopefully also nationally, to raise the profile of water, to mainstream water on the political debate, based on the principal hypothesis that one of the most important, if not the most important, problems of the 21st century is going to be water. Whether you talk about climate change, everybody's talking about climate change, but many seem to forget that 90% of the climate change is manifested through, with, and by water. Whether you talk about an increased frequency of extremes, floods or droughts, or you talk about sea level rise, or you talk about the combine effects, or you talk about changing rainfall patterns, or you talk about recharging aquifers, it's all about water. So humanity has a huge task ahead. How do you adapt to that climate variability and change? Climate change is nothing new. Climate is changing for 4 billion years. What is new? That over the past 200 years, because of the greenhouse gas emissions, the anthropological effect and impact has been superimposed on the natural variation, and that makes it a very difficult issue. It's very difficult to say, well, who is the best actor in the world? I mean, it depends on what play you have. But when it comes to acting as a catalyzer towards political action, acting as a liaison between the profession and the political community, then I believe the World Water Council is the most important organization in that regard. Reason why is that it acts also as a transmission mechanism to bring to the highest political fora issues which citizens are dealing with, whether it's water quality or floods or whatever. We had over the past 20 odd years, gradually built up the profile of the Council so much that now the Council has relations with the highest political echelons, particularly in the United Nations, because we are a global organization. So we would like to be seen as a partner in shaping the global agenda when it comes to water, particularly now when there is this huge political debate going on as to where humanity should move, into what directions after 2015, after the Millennium Development Goals that have not been achieved, by the way, particularly in the sanitation area, and not uniformly within the water supply area. So what are these issues which will hopefully make this planet sustainable And whatever you look at, the Sustainable Development Goals or the Millennium Development Goals, there's one thing that emerges as a connector that connects all of them, and that's water. So if there would be no World Water Council, somebody should have invented that, because that's essentially the function. Act as a bridge to policy making and politics, and bring to the attention of the politicians that it's not yet late, but we have to act now. Well, first of all, to have everybody access to safe drinking water. This is a huge challenge. Big progress has been made over the past 15 years. 15 years ago, when the Millennium Development Goals were adopted by the United Nations, there were 1.4 billion fellow human beings who had no access to drinking water. And now, and the idea was to halve it by 2015. And I think we are on track globally, but not universally. If you look at sub-Saharan Africa, still we are far away from the goal. So we are now down to globally 780 million, basically because of the policies China, India, in Southeast Asia, they have included and applied. But the big problem is the sanitation part. The sanitation part, we are further away from the goal than we were 15 years ago. At the time, there were 2.4 billion fellow human beings who had no access to what you can call basic sanitation. We talk about open defecation. It sounds awful, but this is the practice which is exercised in many parts of the world, particularly in Africa. Now, and today, instead of going down in that number, it's up to 2.6 billion. So instead of improving the situation, it's worse. Now, this is not a matter of human dignity only. Of course, it's very important. Human dignity is above all. But at the same time, it is very strongly linked to public health issues. 90% of the diseases in sub-Saharan Africa are caused or are related to water, or rather the lack of it. Every second patient in a hospital in sub-Saharan Africa is there because of the lack of good water. Now imagine what sort of loss it is at a scale of a national economy, what sort of a loss it is in economic production, what loss it is in terms of human lives, what loss it is in terms of human dignity. You know, that's the most important issue. And I think that will be a very, very important issue for the coming 15 years. Well, one example, if I may quote that, good 15 months ago, that was mid-2013, it was not at all sure whether water and sanitation will be a stand-alone goal amongst the Sustainable Development Goals. And the Sustainable Development Goals is about the whole globe. It goes beyond the developing countries. It's about everybody. Some have argued that, look, you know, water is cross-cutting. Water is everywhere. Others argue that if it is everywhere, it is nowhere. Again, the priority and the attention that is to be given to that will be lost. So we have been campaigning very strongly by calling a summit. There was a water summit in Budapest just about a year ago with the participation of the Secretary General, Ban Ki-moon, Madame Bokova of UNESCO, the Director General of FAO, WHO, WMO. The creme de la creme was there when it comes to the UN, those who have an impact on global policy. And what came out as a recommendation and an adopted text by the participants of that summit had a major impetus in mainstreaming water in the Sustainable Development Goals. This is I mean, it's a lot of diplomacy, a lot of negotiations, and sometimes it's frustrating, sometimes it's tiring, but you know, at least it moves ahead into the direction that is the one which is good. Well, our institute is an educational institute, a part of UNESCO. It's a graduate school, Institute for Water Education. Basically, we are training the next generation of water leaders for the benefit of developing countries. So 96% of our students who are doing Master of Science work and doctoral studies are coming from the developing countries. And from early on, we would like to sort of socialize them to go through that experience that if we do it together, we can overcome. If we unite our forces, even these terrible diseases which are linked to water could be overcome. If we unite all our knowledge, then we can have adaptation strategies to deal with the vagaries of floods and other hydrological extremes. And what we would like to basically inject into them through education programs is the notion of solidarity, that water does not recognize political borders. 40% of humanity lives in shared basins. 35 years down the road, we are going to be, well, successors are going to be 9 billion, which means 4.5 billion people sharing water. The number of people and the users is rising exponentially. The per capita availability is shrinking. So it could be a source of conflict. Now, how do you avoid that early on? How do you prepare the next generation of water leaders for cooperation and give up this notion of absolute sovereignty? This is my water and you have nothing to do with it. But how to use water as an opportunity and how to turn a risk into a cooperation and opportunity. UNESCO is an organization for science and education, and above all, culture. So early on when we took shape, and I had the privilege of being a part of that team, what the council should do. Early on it was clear that fixing the water issues is not just a technical problem. You use more technology and everybody will be happy. It's deeply human, with all the cultural values that are connected to that. So the council, beyond being an integrative type of organization, is also recognizing that the solution lies in integrated water resources management, where you utilize and recognize the various aspects, including the cultural aspects, including even religious aspects, social aspects. So that is why it is so important that and this is really the raison d'etre of the council, to have a complex approach to a very complex issue that cannot be solved by engineers alone, cannot be solved by lawyers alone, cannot be solved by diplomats alone, but if they work together towards a well-established goal, then we got a chance. Well, a concrete example is that we have a number of efforts to deal with transboundary cooperation. And in many parts of the world, it already is a conflict, not necessarily the Nile Basin or the Jordan River Basin, but Central Asia. And with the mechanisms and with the knowledge what the Council is generating through its corporate members, we try to help those countries to solve transboundary cooperation issues. But then is another concrete example is how to help legislation or how to help legislators, parliamentarians. There is not a single person in the National Assembly who would be the Mr. or Madam Voter because of in democratic societies I'm talking about. It's all distributed. But how do you reach out to the legislators upon which the future of the country depends, particularly in the developing countries? So we provide legal advice in terms of reaching out to the best legal expertise in water. We provide what is called a help desk. So if you are a legislator, for instance, in Sub-Saharan Africa, you have a task, design a legal system for water. How do you do that? How do you start? What are the basic legal principles? But it's not only the developing countries. Actually, the two countries that have the most modern water law are Brazil and South Africa. So this, to facilitate that exchange, which we try to do through the political processes what we have with parliamentarians, ministers and heads of states, that's where we hope to achieve greater progress. The water security is the sine qua non of survivability. That's an absolute must. Without that, listen, it's difficult. You can live without, or I can live without internet for 10 days. That's about you can live without love for 30 days. Not easy, but you cannot do that with water. So simple. One of the problems is what the profession faces, and this is what we try to do to help a little bit with our means in the council, is to help communication between the society and the technical people. Communication is key. How do you communicate to the society and to politicians? Complicated messages in a relatively simple language, not oversimplifying it, but to make it understandable for everybody, to understand that water is our common business. Either we work together or we can close shop. That's basically the issue. World Water Forum is what the name is. It's a forum. I mean, there are shops all over, and customers are coming and then shouting and debating things, and that's exactly the good thing in it. That it's an agora. It's a forum that provides the discussion of sometimes very opposing views. It offers opportunities sometimes to discuss very difficult political issues, but not in a confined room of the United Nations or diplomatic negotiations, but people can also contribute to that. So it is indeed an exchange of ideas. And it gradually grew into quite a significant event. We have now 35,000 people who are coming. It's almost a lonely crowd, so one of the issues what we have is how to organize it. How do you just make it an event which comes up with an important message? And the important message now in Daegu next year will be, this is all fine, we have identified the problems, we now have the solutions. The question is how to implement it. What are the conditions for the implementation? What are the obstacles of implementation? It's not only money, that's an important thing, financing, but knowledge, capacity, particularly in the developing countries. You know, as I'm working for the United Nations, or more precisely for UNESCO, I have a bias towards developing countries because I was living there, I was working there, I see the problems there. But unless there is a global solidarity to solve the problems of the developing countries, then we don't do anything but increasing the mess.